All right, we're
I hear something, Liam.
live.
How about you? Do you hear anything?
We're doing good. We are live, and let us check out MAHA already in progress.
A system with the widest possible range of ideas, where the best ideas rise to the top because they actually achieve better results, not because some gatekeeper decided which opinions you're allowed to hear, which opinions make the most money for the biggest companies. Right now, Americans travel all over the world for treatments they can't get here. That's backwards. That's upside down. This should be the country. This should be the city on a hill that people come to from all around the world for the healthiest food, the safest medicine, the most innovative treatments on earth. We led once. This country led once, and we can lead again. That's what MAHA is all about. And their desperate articles show that we're winning and show that they're terrified of us. So we're not going to be quiet. We're never going to back down, and we're never going to stop. This is a revolution in tens of millions of Americans, and they concede that. 25% of the population, 80 million people, have seen too much to unsee it. They suffered too much to forget it. And mark my words, we are up against some of the most powerful and nefarious forces on earth. But we're not afraid. We're just getting started. We're never backing down. So on today's show, we're going to have an impressive lineup of speakers who've been on the front lines of this information warfare, defending free thought, free speech, and exposing the propaganda and fear porn of the mainstream media. We'll be joined by Steve Bannon, the brilliant, relentless, and fearless political strategist and host of Bannon's War Room. Then Charles Eisenstein, author, speaker, and philosopher. Emily Kaplan, co-founder and CEO of the Broken Science Initiative. Mary Holland, CEO of Children's Health Defense. Dr. Eric Berg, known as the Knowledge Doc. Dr. Daniel Pompa, functional medicine practitioner and author. Lee Rosebush, healthcare attorney and pharmacy regulations expert. And Brandon Hoffman, executive director of MAHA Chiropractic Hub. First up, we're thrilled to welcome Dr. Eric Berg. Dr. Berg is, he's earned the title of the Knowledge Doc.
All right, Dr. Berg is coming up, but we got Steve Bannon in the house, man.
We do indeed.
That's a first.
Yes, it is. What do you know about Mr. Bannon, Liam?
Yeah, I watch him all the time. He's innovative, has 2 podcasts every day, hitting it like for the past, 3 or 4 years. Banned on every platform, but it's one of the top. Right? Yeah, he's outstanding.
Does he hit it from a health perspective, from a politics perspective?
Yeah, from all over, but mostly politics. Mostly politics. But he's not the healthiest of looking dudes. But yeah, okay, here comes Dr. Berg in the house. Let's see what Dr. Berg has got to say.
Welcome, Dr. Berg.
Thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate it. You're doing an incredible job, so we all just want to support you as well. Listen, a while back, I sat down with a very interesting individual who was a food scientist. And this person worked for the largest junk food company in the world. So I really was curious, I asked her, I said, what do you guys talk about when you're coming up with a new product and you're around this boardroom? What do you guys discussed? And she's like, well, that's why I quit. I said, what? And she said, yeah, it's pretty much a conversation about how do we design foods to get people to keep eating it. And I wasn't surprised, but it's really all about we have to get people to have this what's called a bliss point, which is a perfect combination of chemicals, salt, sugar, and fat to create just an explosion in your brain. But what happens is she just quit because she has kids. And she says, I don't want to do this for my kids anymore. And what I realized is ultra-processed food is not just cheap food. It's not just poor quality junk food. It's something more than that. It's something very, very engineered intentionally for you to keep eating it. And this is what we're up against. So there are scientists who their entire job is just to perfect the mouthfeel, to put all sorts of artificial sensations in these flavorings that were never, ever in our environment ever from the beginning. So when you consume them, it's like an explosion to your brain, and you're like, wow, what is this? I need to keep experiencing this with these spikes in dopamine, and it creates addictions. So at the same time, they're pushing this PR narrative, which there is no one bad food. Everything in moderation. Health problems are more about portion control and just controlling your calories, which is all aligning with what they're doing, because you can't control your calories when you're eating this food. Basically, we're eating lab food, we're giving it to our kids, and these kids, you're not up against willpower and discipline. That's kind of like push out the door. You have this 9-year-old going up against a product that's been designed by a team of scientists working really hard to keep this person addicted, and who's going to win? So I also want to kind of cross over into a very common disease. It used to be called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, but doctors had to invent it because they're finding the exact same damage that liver created, that alcohol created, actually in people that never drank alcohol. But it creates the same exact effect, especially on children. So, of course, I think most people know refined sugar, refined starches, especially fructose, can create the same damage as alcohol to your liver. And fatty liver is now one of the most common chronic liver diseases in American children. Up to 5 to 8 million kids have fatty liver disease. And sometimes it can progress to inflammation and scarring and even cirrhosis. I mean, in childhood, are you kidding me? And then, of course, along with that, we have type 2 diabetes, which we used to call it adult onset, right? But now it's in children. Like in the last 16 years, it doubled in teenagers. So we're giving this new generation of kids, a liver that is matching what alcohols used to do to their liver. So it's terrible, terrible. We can all just argue a lot about what we disagree with in MAHA. But I think most people agree on what MAHA is doing for the kids. And so what I'm going to ask you to fight for is our food system, like to help back up MAHA and RFK and what he's doing to our food system, because I think we can all agree that we don't want sick kids. And these kids have been intentionally sick or created sickness by design. And finally, someone stood up for this, RFK, and the MAHA movement that's backing him up. So again, we don't have to agree on all these different issues, but this is one that I'm passionate about, and I think we can get behind, because, it's really about getting kids to eat real food. And unfortunately, we've been feeding kids something that doesn't even fit the definition of food. So basically, we need to get everyone on the same page and support the children. And this is why, again, I just want to summarize, we disagree on a lot of things, but there's one thing I think we can all agree on. We need to straighten up our food system, and we need to back up RFK with what he's doing with the food and the junk food and the labeling and the SNAP program. And I think that's a worthy cause. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, Eric. And, it really...
All right. Coming in strong with the tainted, engineered food, trying to make your mouth addicted to horrible stuff. Oops! Wait! Let me get you. I got you muted. Go ahead.
All right,
Go ahead.
Unmute me. All right. This is Liam. That is something that you know, and something that I know, and something that a lot of people do not know, and things that are no-brainers for people who are associated with MAHA, an awful lot of people just aren't aware of. So if you ask the average American what they're feeding their kids and is there anything wrong with it, I think a lot of people would say it's just fine, because they're just not aware. So from where I stand, a lot of what we're about is raising awareness about how what we're doing in our country is so very off of what the norm is in other developed countries, and then you look at the health outcomes and how our country is so very behind other developed countries in terms of health span and lifespan. We die younger and we live much sicker and more incapacitated. And I don't know that people connect the dots on how that's related to food stuff. It's related to other stuff as well, but
Especially how he's talking like they're seeing this liver disease that you only see in alcoholics, which means the liver is just completely stressed out from all of this garbage and engineered material.
So my understanding is that high fructose corn syrup is uber stressful on the liver, and that that's very different than natural sugars that you might find in fruit or in trying to think what other fruits have natural sugars, but I mean, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in kids, that's not okay. Kids used to be sort of default healthy until they got older and adopted bad habits. And now kids are not healthy by default. I worked in a school and an awful lot of kids are just not feeling good day to day. But let's see what Mary Holland says, because I'm a big fan of hers.
Alrighty.
25. So in May 2025, she had listened to the advice of the medical community, listened to the American Academy of Pediatrics. She took her twins dutifully to the doctors, and they gave the twins hepatitis A, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, DTaP, and flu shots at the same time, even though the mother, Andrea Shaw, told the healthcare professionals, there's a family history of adverse reactions to the flu shot in my husband's family. They said, no, it's no problem. We're just going to give the twins these vaccinations. They also gave the twins at the same time a fluoride solution on their emerging teeth. The twins were 18 months old. They were toddlers. They had been born prematurely. The twins go home. And a couple days later, the twins are in terrible shape. They're listless. Their lips are turning blue. And Andrea Shaw, the mother, calls her mother. She calls her mother-in-law. They say, get these twins to the emergency room right away. They're really in trouble. She takes them to the emergency room, and the emergency room documents that they are having a post-immunization reaction. In other words, plain English, they are having a vaccine injury. The hospital looks at them for a couple hours, gives them Tylenol, which we're now understanding is very problematic, has them take a popsicle. If they don't vomit, just send them home. The kids rally, and then the kids die on the same day. And we included this mom, Andrea Shaw, as the lead plaintiff in a case that we filed in January of 2026 against the American Academy of Pediatrics, saying that, and the mom was then immediately, because the twins died simultaneously, she was the only person home, she was immediately put under investigation for murder. She was interrogated. Her husband was interrogated. They, lied to each of them about potential motivations of the other. And she remained under investigation for 14 months. She just gave birth to a new baby. She was indicted. She's in jail outside of Boise, Idaho. She is separated from her newborn. She was nursing her newborn. She cannot have any contact with the newborn or her family. A $2 million bail has been posted for this woman. And as I started to say before, she is the lead plaintiff in a case that we filed against the American Academy of Pediatrics. Why? For racketeering and for fraud. The American Academy of Pediatrics has been telling pediatricians and parents for decades that vaccines are safe and effective. There's no problem giving lots of vaccines at once. It doesn't matter if your baby was premature. It doesn't matter if your baby's sick. It doesn't matter if there's a history of adverse reactions in your family. All of that is the indoctrination, the narrative that AAP with pharma funding it have been telling the country. And of course, I'm sure many of our viewers know, the medical community and the pharmaceutical industry have absolute liability protection for any vaccine injury and death. And so what we said in this complaint is it was foreseeable that they would, in fact, investigate a parent for murder because they can't accept the reality that vaccines are actually a very dangerous product and can lead to injury and death. Even though, in this case, the hospital itself documented days before these twins' deaths that they had suffered a post-immunization reaction. So I'm telling you this because it's all over the media, and the media, Tony, is all about the narrative. It's all the fault of Bobby Kennedy, who founded Children's Health Defense. It's all about those crazy anti-vaccine people at CHD who have the temerity to believe that a parent could be telling the truth about the death of their children. When she took them for the vaccines, she took them back when they were doing poorly, and she tragically found them dead. So I hope that we'll all be following this, and I hope that we'll all recognize this woman must be presumed innocent by the legal system. The prosecutor's office must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she actually murdered her children. But the likelihood is it's at least a very serious possibility that this is actually going to go to trial in Piatt County in Idaho. So definitely please stay tuned. We will be keeping people informed.
Okay, that's a horrible testimony to hear. In pursuant to our last guest, we've got Amanda talking about food. She's from the UK. I'm going to try an English accent. Oh my. In the UK, the children get processed shite. They get processed shite in breakfast clubs at school, sugar cereals, white bread. It's shocking. In 70s, there were no fatties. Agree, Amanda?
What they're doing with the children in the schools in the United Kingdom. Try coming to the United States, where public schools are still serving ice cream for breakfast, and I'm not exaggerating. There are schools where you can get processed junk food 4 or 5 times a day, where children as young as 10 are not in any way encouraged to put an entree on their plate at any point in their visits to the cafeteria during the day. It is insane what goes on. And I'm not saying all schools are like that, but I am saying that some schools are like that. There's a wide variation. It's horrifying. It's really horrifying. Those schools will tell you that moms and dads have the capability of pulling the child's records of what they've been purchasing from the cafeteria and cracking down. But that's putting the onus on the parents. A lot of parents are either too busy or willfully ignorant and aren't going to do it. It also then stigmatizes the child. So if that parent says to the kid, hey, you're looking at one dessert a day. You are not looking at the 4 or 5 desserts that the other kids are getting. Your kid is going to be the oddball. And then you get into the whole business of, well, my mom, look at what I'm buying. I'm going to get 2 ice creams and give you 1. And then we're wondering why the kids are bonkers and they're not paying attention in class after snack or after lunch. Insanity. Absolute insanity.
And in speaking to the last guest, Amanda was just like, what the doctors killed the kids and the parents get charged with murder. It's just absolutely,
it's insane. And Liam, I already put something in the chat to you, and I'm going to pull up Dr. Jeff Barker from Substack, who talked about one of the vaccines that's for infants now, and how you have to have an EpiPen on board and a whole lot of other alarming things because of the rate of adverse reactions. Let's hear what this individual has to say.
Steve Bannon in the house.
Demanding people respect the MAHA movement and know how powerful it is. I really knew almost nothing about these issues years ago. You know, I'm an economic nationalist, a populist. I know about capital markets and economics and national security. And, the border, my time at Breitbart, I learned about immigration, taught myself all the issues about that, but really didn't know much about healthcare or, food as medicine, any of the key issues with Make America Healthy Again. I didn't understand it, didn't have an interest. But it was after.
Uh-oh. Got a problem, Liam? I think we're having tech issues again. I heard Steve Bannon, and now I do not hear Steve Bannon. So one of the things that I was just talking about is that Dr. Jeff Barker on Substack, on a forum called Stop the Shots, posted a video. And by the way, he, like any other pediatrician, can receive up to between $100,000 and $200,000 per year if 65% of the 2-year-olds in the pediatric practice are fully immunized according to the current CDC recommendations. I'm going to repeat it so that parents understand it. And if you know somebody who is the parent of a young child, I encourage you to acquaint them with this fact. Pediatricians are not without financial incentive to encourage the parents of the patients in their practice to get fully immunized. There's a financial incentive that goes with every 2-year-old who's fully vaccinated. However, if 65% of the 2-year-olds are not fully vaccinated, the entire incentive goes away. People have crunched numbers and have said that based on the average number of 2-year-olds in the traditional pediatric practice, the numbers would come to between $100,000 and $200,000 per pediatrician per year. So that's not for the entire practice. That is for each individual doctor. We already know that believe it's a $20 lunch from a pharmaceutical rep is enough to alter prescribing habits of physicians. Clearly, a bonus of between $100,000 and $200,000 for individuals who are human like the rest of us, have bills to pay like the rest of us, have to pay off their medical school debt, might have some tuitions to pay, a few college tuitions down the road, mortgage, and whatever else, cannot help but be swayed by that financial incentive. So I just really wish that all parents were acquainted with that fact. I think it's really important that people know it. But at any rate, this Dr. Jeff Barker posted a video where he talked about, and I'm looking for it right now as we speak, that you have to have an EpiPen on board. It has, I'm trying to remember what the number is. Here we go. The number here we go, stop the shots. There we go. I am including the link right now to Liam. So please hang around at the end of the show. We'll be able to play for you the video of this particular doctor who says enough is enough, that how can this be allowed to happen? And 6 infants died in clinical trials on this one shot for 6-week-old babies. It has 6 vaccines in it. I don't want to play it because I don't know if we're suddenly going to be back and live, and I'm not quite sure what's happening on the tech end. But again, I just think this is really important information to have as we talk about vaccines, as we talk about kids, as we talk about health, as we talk about how horrifying it is what Mary Holland shared, that a woman's in prison separated from her 14-month-old on trial for murder of her twins, when the ER already documented that the twins were having an adverse reaction to the vaccines that they had received. If it's not punishment enough that not 1 but 2 of her children died, and now she's separated from the child that she was brave enough to go ahead and conceive, carry, birth, and bring into the world. I am not quite sure where Liam is. I am not sure whether to keep talking, whether I'm talking to myself or talking to any humans. Excuse me just a minute while I text Liam and see what the story might be. All right, Liam now has those links, so that's a good thing. And I'm just going to text Liam. Well, actually, I'm not going to text Liam because if I text him, that is one more distraction that will prevent him from getting us back online and together. I've not had this happen before. I've not had this happen that things go offline for this period of time. I invite people to put their comments in the chat, always interested in other perspectives. You do not have to be a MAHA supporter or somebody who is pro RFK to put your comments in the chat. I would love to hear from other people as long as it's respectful and along the lines of constructive and productive. Amanda, help me. What have you got? Okay. see what I can do here. I don't believe it's a tech issue on my end, but I might go ahead and just log into MAHA as if I were just a regular participant to see what it is that they might be talking about so that I can make some remarks about it.
It's making this country more unhealthy every day. And so we ought to put the fear of God into them. We're open for business with you guys. Just let us know.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks, everybody.
Next up, we have Dr. Daniel Papa. And Dr. Papa is the founder of the Papa program, healthcenters.com. He wrote Cellular Healing Diet and Beyond Fasting. And through his own journey to health, from being really sick to being really healthy, he became a leading cellular health expert and is now teaching practitioners all around the world about advanced detox strategies, but also about so many other things. Just a great doctor, a great man, incredibly generous. Dr. Papa, welcome.
Yeah, you always for having me. I love this mission. I tell you, I'm coming out of my skin. First of all, congratulations, Tony, the team, MAHA, Bobby, because that article was an absolute sign of victory. Because we are on the map, we are making a difference. Look at what's at stake. Did you hear Mary Holland? Our children, they're at stake. The midterm elections are at stake. You know,
and MAHA is really driving that. They see it, and they're absolutely afraid. The battle, and I have warned all of us, and if I come on here and say anything, this is the most important thing I say right now. It's a reminder that we are at war. When you look at things that we just scratch our heads and see, man, it's so obvious to us. This is how the enemy is railroading us. This is how he's taking us off focus. This is how he could ruin our country, our families, the establishments, all of it. It is health. And the battle is spiritual. Every time I say it's beyond logic, I remind myself the battle's spiritual. Now, those of you who heard me in the past, I said we are at war. Tony, you said we're at war. Steve Bannon said we're at war. Mary Holland said we are at war. We are. But the battle is spiritual. But we are not here without a war cry. Now, those of you who heard me in the past know that I gave you the war cry. It's 3 Hebrew words, Rak, Kazak, Amatz. And everywhere in your Bibles, that stands for the 3 words, be strong and courageous. But the Hebrew words have so much more meaning. The word rock literally just means if you just do one thing, and I challenge everyone, if you just do one thing. Kazak, the next word, means you stand boldly, physical boldness. We are not going to retreat. We're not retreating. There's no way we're retreating. You think Mary Holland's going to retreat? There's no way she's going to retreat. You think Steve Bannon's going to retreat? Tony, you're not retreating. We're not retreating. That's a physical boldness and a stand that we take. But the word amatz even means more. It's a spiritual boldness. That means we are empowered by what we know God is doing through this organization. It is good versus evil. I don't care. We have probably every religious group listening to my words right now. But the fact is we know the battle's spiritual, don't we all? And we know that we will win if we understand that the battle's spiritual. Ra Kazak Amatz, if I paraphrase it all put together, it literally means God goes before us. He empowers us. He gives us the strength. When someone's about to move into a promise, God spoke Ra Kazak Amatz, to the person through somebody. So we speak it. That's the war cry that God gave us, and that is the war cry that we will fight. Listen, MAHA has made a difference. Steve said he didn't even understand these things, these concepts before MAHA. Well, it's not just Steve, it's the populace. I'm telling you, we have made an impact, even of just bringing back the focus of where does health come from. It is more about prevention. MAHA woke up our society that it's not about just yet another drug, right? It's not about an outside-in philosophy, but an inside-out. God designed our bodies to heal, and we're getting to the actual causes of why we have diabetes in young kids, why cancer rates have risen since the 1970s, 67%, why 60-some% of the population has chronic disease. It is the toxins. MAHA brought ultra-processed food into the conversation. We threaten big ag, we threaten big pharma, we threaten all the big industries. No wonder they're writing this article. It was an anti-Trump piece, an anti-Bobby piece. It's political, but all it did really, I believe, will empower us even further. Because when I read it, it was literally just screamed the difference we're making. But again, I'm coming from a perspective of this battle is spiritual. I'm telling you, we better put the full armor on, every one of us that are in the battle. The Bible tells us, put the full armor on, every piece, because of the battle being spiritual. But Rock Kazakamats, it is the war cry. We will win. We are not backing up. We're moving forward. And Tony, you're leading the march.
Rock Kazakamats.
Yes.
Twice we were shut down. Twice we were shut down. How long we been doing this, Susan? And this is the
help with the CPUs.
It was an internet failure. I saw on the thing the feed just got pulled. So like we're like Bonnie and Clyde or something here,
That's
and
right.
we've got like the authorities coming after us.
That's right. So on the glyphosate thing, I learned new information as if we didn't already know that it was bad stuff. I learned that it messes up the plant and that the plant reduces it reduces the ability of the plant to absorb minerals from the soil by about 80%. So that not only is the soil already depleted from modern farming practices, but then the plant that has been touched by glyphosate, which if anybody does not know, is a pesticide that began to be widely used in the 1990s, then further reduces the ability of the plant to absorb minerals, which is why the information that I've heard is that you would have to eat on the order of 50 carrots to get the nutrients, the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytochemicals, etc., from one carrot that your grandparents might have eaten. So there's that.
Yeah, I hear it. It was first marketed as like they would clean boilers, like these huge vats, and they found out when they would clean it with this product, all of the plants around it would die, and they're like, "Whoa, man, it looks like we got something here." So it doesn't attack the animal in terms of making it sterile or whatever they used to do. Pulls the minerals out of the plant, so even the pests say this is a bunch of garbage. It's really frightening.
It is frightening. And then, of course, it damages the blood-brain barrier, which when I think about the epidemic of anxiety in kids, teens, early 20s, anybody who's about 30 or younger is essentially in the first crop of children who, when they were in utero, was exposed to glyphosate. Let's hear what Charles Eisenstein has to say.
Alrighty.
It is a reminder, first, that if we're going to look at this as a war, the other side will always underestimate us, and especially they will underestimate our resilience, because to a large extent, they believe their own propaganda. In their world, vaccine injuries and deaths and all this stuff is just kind of imaginary. So they don't understand what it's like to lose loved ones yourself to vaccine injuries and some of the other issues that we're active on, or to hear stories like that and to believe them. That generates a commitment and a zeal that is invisible to them. And that's why, as Dr. Pompa was saying, that's why we're not going to be retreating. It's also stories that, like the one that Mary told, and like none of us are I mean, I've known about these kind of things all the time. You know, how many, quote, shaken baby syndrome prosecutions are actually from vaccine injuries. I mean, I've known this all the time, but sometimes you got to hear another story and it just lands again. And it reminds us what we are here to do. Because the invitation that the powers that be extend to us all the time is to start fighting each other. Oh, I don't want to be associated with this person in MAHA because they're, you know, they have a different view on the Iran war. They have a different view on immigration or whatever. Like they invite us to replicate the pattern that has rent our entire society into warring camps, that divides the population and expends all of their energy fighting each other when unifying issues go neglected. And these were some of the issues that carried Bobby to such success in the campaign. Well, that phenomenon of division in the American public, we don't want to see that replicated in our own movement. So that's why stories like the one that Mary told, they kind of anchor us into unity, because they're like, okay, what are we actually doing here? Now, I also want to extend that perception, that understanding of unity beyond our movement, because that the story that Dr. Berg told also landed pretty strong with me. The food scientist who quit her job because she could not stand what she was doing. For every one of her, there are probably 10 or 50 or 100 executives, scientists, doctors in the system who have private doubts or a private protest, private disagreement, a moral disagreement with what the system is doing. But they're kind of, you know, keeping their head down. They don't have quite the courage, but they're there. Ultimately, the way that we win this war is through not just overcoming the other side by force. Because if it comes down to that, the other side has more force. You know, they've got vast amounts of money. They have a vast propaganda machine. The way that we win is through a change of heart and a change like Steve Bannon was exemplified here. You know, that he, like, I don't know, Steve, what your positions are on other things. But the fact that you were open and listened and changed your mind, that inspires some trust. So it can happen even in people probably 10 years ago. Like, you know, I would have disagreed with Steve Bannon on pretty much every issue, and I probably do disagree with some right now. But I'm not going to focus on the divisions as if I could sequester myself from any bad people, defined by people who have bad opinions. That's the patterning that we have to let go of. Otherwise, this movement will destroy itself in the same way so many movements before have destroyed itself. You find something to disagree on and you amplify that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to retreat. And thank you for your attention and your incredible work, everybody.
Everyone's a little bit salty, very sort of Fight Club mentality. Amanda chimes in saying selenium is removed by glyphosate. It's selenium. It's true. Roundup.
You,
it
Amanda,
gives us leaky gut. I have a peptide for chronic anxiety called C-Link. It's a nasal spray and crosses the blood-brain barrier, sorting out GABA, serotonin, and dopamine.
I'm writing it down, Amanda, so I can look into it. C-Link. Okay, great. Yeah, peptides are great. I'm not familiar with that one, but I am familiar with some other ones, including a few, well, one, I guess, that I take. And peptides they're good stuff. And you know they're good stuff because the FDA is waging war on them, which means the FDA is quaking in its boots that they're highly effective without significant side effects, and therefore are a competitor to things that the pharmaceutical industry produces. So that, according to Dr. Pierre Corey and his Corey scale, you know that you've got something that's really worth looking into, based on how hard the FDA and the powers that be have waged war on it in terms of discrediting it. Things like ivermectin during the pandemic. And that really seems to be true, that the more they fight it, the more they want to poo-poo it and say, this will kill you. Look closely at it, because chances are that the lethality rate is actually far below drugs that are currently on the market. We have an adverse drug event rate of, I believe it is the third leading cause of death in the United States. Am I right on that, Liam? It's either the third or the fourth. Yep.
I think it's the third. I think you're correct on the third.
Right. And Liam and I have interviewed Bob Schwartz, who is one of the poster children for adverse drug events. He's been campaigning diligently for 22 years since his own adverse drug event to raise awareness about just how frequent this event is, so that other people don't have the same tragedy occur in their lives that happened to him. And Liam and I we're due to have yet another conversation with Bob, because 22 years is a lot of information, and we're not finished hearing the fallout of what happened to him 22 years ago on March 24th, 2000, I believe it was 2004, 2001 of those. Yeah.
Yeah, horrible story that our dear friend Bob had to endure, and still is suffering.
And still is enduring, right? 22 years later, the guy still has mild cognitive impairment as a result. You would not know it if you spent a brief amount of time with him, but if you spend a little bit more, you can see where he's not quite as sharp as he once was, and that's a direct.
Yeah, he was a $1 million earner for.
Sure was. Yep. All right, Lee Rosebush has something to say.
Yes, let's see what's up.
But I'm here really to be able to ask all of you, right? Whether you're social media folks and you've got a strong power on social media, or whether you're with grassroots, we need your help. For those that don't know, on the peptide discussion, the deadline for written submissions to the FDA is tomorrow. And it's literally 11:59 p.m. tomorrow evening. For those that are interested in helping, here, I would drastically really could use your help to be able to go to our website. It's pepmed.org, PEPMED.org. It is for the American Academy of Peptide Medicine. Think of it like the American Heart Association, but for peptides. And if you go there, there's a web page at the top, and you've got the ability to click on that and send a link and a note directly to the FDA, directly to be able to help support Kyle, and to be able to directly help Bobby, to be able to, for folks to understand why it's important for us to have access to these peptides. So far today, you've heard a lot of stories about disagreement and fights, and it is a good thing. But there is one thing that has echoed across everybody, whether it is Mary talking about vaccines, whether it is Steve talking about the rights to fight, whether it was Dr. Papa talking about children. And what it comes down to is medical freedom and medical liberties. And that's in essence what this is all about. It doesn't matter if you're trying to stand up to say whether I do or do not have to take a vaccine. It doesn't matter if we're up to standing at that same discussion on ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamins, peptides, stem cells, or anything else. When it comes as a pharmacist, I can tell you first, the most important relationship is the one between the prescriber, the pharmacist, and the patient. And in essence, that's what this fight comes down to tomorrow. And we're asking for all of your help to be able to help stand up and push back to say that no FDA regulator should stand in between the patient and the provider. And that what we put into our bodies, right, should be determined by that pharmacist, the patient, and the provider. And so we would ask that each of you go to that website, PEPMED.org, to be able to help write a letter. Ultimately, when it comes down to the standards and how these are going to be reviewed, we have a hearing on July 23rd and 24th. There are 4 peptides on the 23rd, BPC, TB500, MODC, and KPV, and 3 on the 24th. And what we've seen from those at the careers at the FDA is they have pushed to say that in order to have access for these peptides, that you in essence have to go through a new drug application process and a whole safety approval process. And right now, I can tell you, Bobby has stood up to push back. You've heard him talk about the differences between safety and efficacy and our lawsuits when the Biden administration messed up in 23 and put these on the list and what that meant. You've heard Kyle come on and talk about the medical freedoms and discussions associated with that. And ultimately, if you look at the regulations, FDA's own regulations of which they're supposed to follow, it's really a 4-factor test. It's simply the name and the physical characteristic of what they're looking at, the peptide, any safety issues raised by it. Notice you don't have to prove safety. The efficacy discussion, if there is any even, you don't have to provide that, and the historical use of this. And so those are the 4 factors legally they are supposed to follow. And we need to ensure that we as a group from MAHA push back so that way those proper standards are there, and that Kyle and Bobby have the support that they have been trying to push for this. You know, Steve mentioned this a minute ago, and so did Charles. And I want to make sure this comes across. And Tony, it's a little bit of breaking news for you, right? For pollster aspects of this. As you know, we ran a poll with Tony Fabrizio. For those that don't know who Tony Fabrizio is, that is President Trump's personal pollster, the group that does it for the White House. In addition, some of you may know Kellyanne Conway. I had Kellyanne again run a second poll to be able to back this up. So there were 2 separate pollsters, 2 different groups, didn't know about each other, asking separate different questions. And ultimately, we got our results back when it came to peptide access. And the results may shock you. 73% of Harris voters support this. Almost 80% of Trump voters support this. And those that switch parties from that perspective, are over 70%. According to Kellyanne Conway's discussions, over 80% of people, regardless of party, are in support of allowing regulated U.S. compounding pharmacies to provide these. And I raise that to you because it shows that MAHA, who were the very first ones to stand up for this important issue, are on the right side. And it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, etc. These are 80% numbers in support. And as we all know from DC, it is unheard of to have something that is a plus 60 in this type of political environment. This is a plus 60 issue. In addition to changing votes, it is a plus 35 issue. People are 35% more likely to support their congressman for midterms if they support this issue moving forward. And that's from 2 separate pollsters. And again, this is what MAHA has been behind pushing. This is why Bobby is in the right. And this is why this book is important, that we can get this information out. And I would ask all of you to please go to pepmed.org to be able to provide the support for Bobby and Kyle as we move forward with this, because that deadline is tomorrow. So thank you, Tony.
All right. Amanda says that another peptide called CMAX. Russians have used these 2 in ambulances for brain injuries and strokes. I think she was talking CLANC and CMAX. I've got a confession to make, Susan.
Please.
I don't know what a peptide is. I know what a lipid is. I have no idea what a peptide is.
I believe I got to look up the definition, Liam, to make sure I'm not screwing it up, but I believe it's just an amino acid. But peptides are sort of a new player on the keep yourself healthy front. And this definition is loading as we speak. Oh, shoot. I'm in Spain, and they are loading it for me in Spanish. All right, peptide explanation in English.
Arriba, ándale.
So I know that found site can't be reached. Not having luck today.
Yeah, see, they're messing with us, Susan. They're messing with us.
All right, but I did get it. Peptides are short chains of 2 to 50 amino acids linked together by covalent peptide bonds. I have no idea what a covalent peptide bond is, but I imagine somebody out there does. These bonds form through a condensation reaction where the carboxyl group of one amino acid reacts with the amino group of another, releasing a molecule of water. All I know is they serve critical functions as hormones, insulin, oxytocin, neurotransmitters, antibiotics, and signaling molecules that regulate metabolism, tissue repair, and immune response. Directionality, each peptide chain has a specific orientation defined by a free, N-terminus. All right, we're getting way in the scientific weeds here. I don't understand it. I'm going to need somebody with a higher level scientific training and background than I have to explain it. But it is something that is available right now in the wellness world. It is something that a functional doctor, both Russian and used for decades.
Used them both in the exomes and stem cells. And
Yep.
now some NAC enhanced. So
That
sounds
is
really interesting.
N-acetylcysteine, another amino acid. Lots of good comes from the world of amino acids, but let's hear what
Yes,
Brandon
indeed.
has to say.
Oh, right.
Last month, I told you what we're building at the Chiropractic Hub. Today, I get to tell you about the significant progress we've made and why July 1st was such an important day for the chiropractic profession. On July 1st, the American Chiropractic Association, the International Chiropractors Association, and the MAHA Chiropractic Hub signed a formal agreement committing to one shared mission: modernizing Medicare for chiropractic. This is a monumental and a historic moment for the profession that should be celebrated. One profession, one bill, and one voice. The people this is really for are our American seniors. Here is what most people don't realize. Chiropractic became a Medicare benefit in 1972, and Medicare still treats chiropractic like it's 1972. It covers exactly one service, the spinal adjustment, not the broad expertise that chiropractors are trained in and licensed to bring to the table. And for more than 50 years, our seniors have paid the price as a result. 1 in 3 American seniors lives with chronic pain every single day. And the program built to cover their care has too often left them with 2 first-line options: drugs or surgery. Bills to fix this have stalled for too long, and our own organizations were, at many times, not pulling in the same direction. That era ended on July 1st. We are here to support the profession at large, getting this bill across the finish line. And I'm here to tell you that we're going to get it done. The bill we're talking about is the Chiropractic Medicare Coverage Modernization Act, H.R. 539 in the House, S-106 in the Senate. It is simple. Seniors get access to the care doctors of chiropractic are already licensed by their states to provide, and the freedom to choose it. Nothing in this bill changes any state scope of practice. Remember, Medicare is a payer, not a scope of practice authority. This is Make America Healthy Again in one bill. Target root cause through non-drug, non-surgical care as a real first-line option, and it gives our seniors the freedom of choice before opioids, before the operating room. More options up front and a real chance at better outcomes and better years ahead. This bill has broad bipartisan support in both chambers, and the profession is united behind passing it and strengthening it with 3 amendments as it moves. Now, the reality is co-sponsors alone don't pass a bill. Committees do. What this bill needs is a committee vote and a markup this session. For the first time in this fight, the entire profession is pulling in one direction. The agreement locks that alignment in. Now we turn it into committee action, and committee vote happens when members of Congress hear from the people who elect them, especially the seniors in their districts who live this every day. That is the machine we are turning on right now nationwide. So here's what I need from you. First, contact your members of Congress today. We have already done the work for you. The MAHA Action Legislative Tracker for HR 539 has the message ready to go. Takes 2 minutes of your time and your voice is on the record. Second, if you're a chiropractor, activate your patients this week and have them reach out to Congress by July 15th. And no voice is more powerful than a senior telling their member of Congress what getting their life back would mean. And third, spread the message. Share the news with chiropractors, patients, every senior you know, and point them to the Chiropractic Hub and Legislative Tracker. When this movement speaks with one voice, it is impossible to ignore. Getting here took real leadership, so I really want to acknowledge Dr. Joe Betts of the ICA and Dr. Chris Anderson of the ACA and both associations directly. The feedback has been phenomenal so far from the profession. Everything I've heard is this is a historic moment, and we are so excited to begin activating with the profession to move this forward and get it done. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you having me on, Tony, and look forward to continuing this mission.
All right. I love a good whack and crack, man. Big fan of the chiropractic method. Amanda was saying, as far as peptides are concerned, that we need to be available, just not in private clinics. So I agree. Oops, we're having trouble with your mic. What's going on?
I'm wondering whether they do in the UK. So when you get a minute, you can put that in the chat. Liam,
Yes.
have you ever heard of specific chiropractic? Do you know what that's about?
Specific
And it so happens
chiropractic.
that I can tell you. So specific chiropractors, and I believe there are only around 40 left in the US currently, they adjust typically one vertebrae only, which is in the cervical area of the neck, but they have about 300 ways to adjust it. According to them, there is a little opening in that cervical disc area through which something like, I want to say 300 million nerves go, some insane number of nerves. And so if there is compression due to any type of an injury, any type of birth trauma, think of an infant coming through the birth process, maybe forceps are used, something gets out of whack in the neck area, some function in the body is going to be compromised. So anyway, there's not very many of them that are in the US, but the claim is that they are able to work wonders on anything from sorry, I'm blanking, I'm losing my words, from migraine headaches to all kinds of neurological issues, things that other people that have been to various practitioners and not been able to resolve their health problems sometimes get results with specific.
Sounds interesting. Interesting.
So, yeah. All right, Emily Kaplan.
Emily Kaplan in the house.
And we have done a very deep dive into things like the replication crisis and statistical manipulation and looking at peer review and the problems that are there. And then MetFix is really primarily gyms. So we have about 130 locations where we're teaching personal trainers to reverse chronic disease. And we are having wild success a year into this, where we're seeing disease reversal from women who have osteoporosis who were told, like, you're never going to improve your bone health, to lots and lots of people with type 2 diabetes coming in, 10 years of type 2 diabetes, being told this is a medication management path, and getting off their medication and normalizing their A1C in as little as 5 months. So I really want to make the message very, very clear that I think, from my lens of having been an investigative reporter, the issues that MAHA is pushing are not controversial. They are universal principles of health that every human wants and every parent wants for their children. And this idea of controversy is the tool that is being used against all of us. And I think the louder that we can all be about the successes that are happening, the better, because I think that really tamps down on the negative narrative, which is entirely funded by pharma, from my estimation. So I think, I could certainly talk more about what's happening at MetFix, but because this New York Times story just came up while I was in the car ride on the way from the hotel, I thought I would just dig in a little bit. So this is a very superficial analysis, but one of the things that always comes to mind for me is, what are the sources being used? And quite frankly, this New York Times piece looks like sort of AI chatbot slop. The sources that they are referring out to don't actually line up with the statistics that they're using in the piece, which is sort of flag one. They say they have this sort of silly thing about Jay Bhattacharya saying that people want to be healthier, like that's a negative. Of course they do. They try to go into some of the COVID stuff, and I think, a lot of people may not even realize this, but according to the CDC, 100% of COVID deaths were people with a comorbidity. Those comorbidities are chronic diseases. Those are things that we can actually address. And I think Bobby and, people working so hard at HHS are, through the dietary guidelines, through the approval of things like peptides that are going to help people, through a lot of these different things. As somebody who looked at women's health pretty intensely for a few years as a journalist, I can tell you, like, the stuff that's happening with women's health now, nobody really thought was ever going to happen. There are a lot of really powerful things to celebrate. But just to give you some idea of this New York Times story, some of these things are just outrageous. Like they basically say that everybody was in favor of lockdowns, and then you look at the study that they're citing, and it's nowhere near. And so I would sort of suggest, I know I don't have enough time to go into all of this, but Tony, I'd be happy to write this up even for you guys, because it's like a joke when you look at the sourcing that they're providing and what those surveys they are linking out to actually say. It's far more in favor of the initiatives that MAHA is pushing forward. And I guess I'll just sort of conclude here by saying, I think what we're seeing is really that, from my perspective, MAHA is not political. The stuff we're doing at Broken Science and MetFix is not political. It's really sort of the manifestation of all of the wrongdoing that has happened to all of us and how much we've been lied to, and that collective frustration rising to the surface and allowing people to congregate together and demand something better. Now, that's incredibly threatening. If you're the media or your pharma or your government institutionalized the way that we're seeing, pushing back on some of these efforts, you'd have to acknowledge you were responsible, and you'd have to take some responsibility for that. And I don't think people want to do that. So when you read a story like this in the New York Times, what they're basically doing is trying to double down, when in fact, like, the sources that they're providing don't even back up what their claims are. So I think that's sort of a very quick, broad overview. I hope that's enough to satisfy everybody's curiosity.
Sounds like the New York Times is thrown down with a hit piece. It'd be interesting to see.
Oh my goodness. I mean, if there are people who think that the New York Times is unbiased reporting, well, I guess I would start with, are people well acquainted with the fact that all the major news media outlets are more than 50% funded by pharmaceutical companies? So that right there is going to color what news pieces are presented and what the slant of those news pieces is. And I think if you look at it, you can really see, I mean, I know that right now in Congress, help me, Liam, his name, Senator Ron Johnson, is really big on the fact that there are enormous, mind-blowing documents that have come out about how Fauci lied and about all types of things where there was suppression of evidence of harms with the COVID shot. And the media is just not reporting on it. So Fauci's been called to trial. He has to testify. You would not know that if you don't hop onto a MAHA meeting or hear about it in some non-major news media source. It's
and
really
during the last discussion with we were talking about chiropractic solutions. Amanda's brother is a chiropractor.
Yeah, nice.
Awesome. So, and a baby that's colic needs an adjustment. That's an interesting perspective. Never heard of that relationship.
So I did take a colicky Moroto infant to a chiropractor, and I have to say the Moroto infant was still colicky afterwards. But but then again, I do believe that my daughter had digestive issues because there were clearly things that were going on in that department. Borax helps with calcium renewal.
With calcium renewal to the
Interesting.
bones.
Yeah.
And also I follow a doctor who says that when people have arrhythmia and problems with the heart beating correctly, that it's a spinal problem. And today's solution is to rip your chest open and put in a pacemaker when all you need is the supplements necessary to help your spine rebuild the cartilage that has been atrophied.
I just read something today on a Substack called Sensible Medicine about how a lot of knee surgeries, the data is that they don't really help that much. That if anything, people who undergo certain types of knee surgery, it predisposes them to require additional surgeries in the future, and that removal of damaged cartilage, that there's no evidence that it helps, and it may actually be harmful. So I think there's a whole lot of medical procedures that are just undertaken because that's the way we do it, but it may not actually be of benefit, and it may be of detriment.
Yeah, I'm doing my own rebuilding. I was apparently so screwed up with my upper back that I went to a chiropractor and he refused to give me an adjustment because he says I was too, I'm like petrified wood or something, and I was too.
Liam, I've never heard of that. You are a first. Yeah. I have never heard of somebody that chiropractic.
Mother effort took like $450 in X-ray fees to tell me to go F myself. So
I'm sorry. It sounds frustrating.
Yeah, very frustrating. And I was looking, I specifically said, they call it the ring dinger, where they put a towel under your neck, they lock your legs down, and then they pull, so it compresses from your tailbone to your neck. I was like, do you do that? He says, yeah, we do that. And then he went on and told me he went, got consulted with all of his partners, and they never saw anything like this. I was like, you big piece of crap. So I've been
your friend on Substack is a Substack called Fix Your Posture, and I actually went ahead and I just paid the Whopperdoodle monthly fee of $6 or whatever it is, because I've been impressed with what this person has put out, and they have I think they can help you. I really do.
Well, I've been using my own protocol. My intuition was, I think, correct, because I think I have it here. I think it was partly a parasitical problem, and I've got my ivermectin. Oh no, and my fenbendazole. Oh no! Look! The banned substances. No.
And ivermectin, for people who don't know, not only was it poo-pooed in the pandemic, it won a Nobel Peace Prize for curing blindness.
The safest freaking thing. You give it to pregnant women. So I've been going through these
that are already on the market and approved by the FDA are killing off Americans at an alarming rate, where it is the third leading cause of death in our country. And those medicines are not necessarily we're not talking overdoses. We're talking medicines that are properly prescribed and properly taken. But the toxicity rate is such that they did Liam's mom in, and they did my mom in, and a few other people that I know. So
yes, indeed. Yeah. So I'm interested to see, because through fasting and through parasite management, destruction, I've gained a much a greater range of motion, and so I'm interested to see. Actually, now I got my old X-rays from a couple of years ago, so I want to see because every chiropractor that I went to says, "Oh, you can't rebuild it. You're just screwed. That's it."
Of course, we all know if we break a bone, if I break this bone, everybody expects that it will knit itself back together. Why would you not be able to rebuild bone? That's just crazy talk. And same with cartilage. I take UC2 cartilage. 5 types. And
he was trying to sell me. Really, 5 types of cartilage? Yeah, and he was trying to sell me this stem cells.
Stem cells, I've heard about those. Not done a deep dive. I just know they're wickedly expensive. I know.
Yeah, and I said, well, don't you make stem cells when you fast? And this chiropractor goes to me, well, there's old man stem cells, and then there's ones you could buy all fresh, harvested from some embryo or whatever the thing, anyways.
Right.
But
old man, Liam, I think you got insulted. I think he was dissing you. I really do.
Yeah, it was on the north side of Chicago. I think this guy was, I don't know. Not. Anyways, Amanda says she was talking about borax. She's, I believe, used it for a decade now. And HCQ, borax, and yes, stem cells.
Yep.
Can cure autism.
HCQ means hydroxychloroquine. And actually, I had that too. I had a functional doctor. It's actually a normal-ish med that regular rheumatologists prescribe for autoimmune diseases. And do we need to watch this, Liam, the end of things, or?
Yeah, we'll just give a little listen.
Disease epidemic. MAHA's influence is reaching millions. It's reaching.
I'm willing to discuss it. I don't know that I'm willing to do it yet.
Drinking, I don't know, man. I'm do a lot of things, but drinking pee-pee, I don't know.
My husband,
You gotta-
my husband says, like, if Mercola told you to do it, you would do it. I'm like, dude, I got to draw the line somewhere. Like drinking pee is where I draw the line. But I do know that they will, I don't know, there's some process where they can freeze dry whatever's in your pee and put it in a capsule and then you take it.
But Amanda makes a good point. She says there is stem cells in the pee-pee.
Interesting.
Wow,
So here's my
okay.
question, Amanda. How do we know that if you drink your pee and the stem cells are in the urine, how do we know that you absorb it through your GI tract into your system as a whole versus just re-peeing it out again? That's my next question.
Interesting idea, Amanda says. It's ancient. The Romans used to drink their own. That's how they conquered the known world.
All about the liquid gold, and I think some of the Ayurvedic physicians are all about it. Again,
The
there's
liquid gold? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
That reminds me of a Monty Python joke. What's that?
Oh, I was going to
Yeah,
ask.
it reminds me of this Monty Python joke where they
range of motion and so forth. Have you any like either yoga or movement stuff, lymphatic exercises, anything to kind of get you loosened up in here? Uh-oh. Did you freeze? Are we having CPU troubles?
the moving stuff. Not yet. Yeah, we're at a So I just opened the browser and not CPU troubles, just we're Let's see. Show we're clocking
There are two
in at
things
about
that I want to make sure that we show, Liam, before we hop on.
100% there. So we're just
There's the
gonna
grid.
let it. We're gonna let it brew. Okay. Let's let it just the old screen left.
Yeah.
So since it went down to 99%, 98, 97. All right.
That's a good number, Liam.
So that's
At
good.
what percentage do you feel like I
Oh, no,
don't
but-
worry about CPUs?
What's that now? You were breaking up.
At what
Go ahead,
percentage,
again.
when you said it's going from 99 to 98 to 97, what's the percentage where you feel like I'm good, I don't have to worry about CPUs anymore?
Well, I like it around 60, high 60s.
Oh, we've got a ways to go then. We got to get all the way
Early
down.
70%, and then I feel confident that we're going to be okay.
All right.
So, let's see. Let me try to share a screen. There were some things I think you wanted to. I have in the comments here that you.
So the first one is, you can actually just go right to the second one, because the physician who made the video in the second link is essentially what I want people to hear. And we're back on the
Okay.
subject of childhood vaccinations. And I'm not here to tell anybody to do it. I'm not here to tell anybody not to do it. I just think that people ought to hear both sides of the story. And I think people ought to be aware of the financial incentive that pediatricians have to get at least 65% of the 2-year-olds in their practices fully vaccinated, so that they can pocket a financial incentive that can amount to 6 digits, somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 per year, per physician.
Okay. And we were talking about, what did you call it? The golden
Liquid gold.
shower,
Liquid
the
gold,
golden
what?
what? The gold. What's it called?
Liquid
What's
gold. And Amanda says you can even place
Liquid
it on,
gold. You can place the liquid gold on burns, and
But
even
Amanda,
the
I-
Bible. It's written in the Bible.
And I put Manuka honey on burns, and I'm pretty sure they talked about milk and honey in the Bible too. I just am not there yet on the P. I fully support you doing the P, Amanda, but I'm not quite there yet on the P. Just say no.
Just say no. They get huge
dollars.
dollars. Yes.
It's true. Right. And the fear mongering and also the assumptions. I think that the vast majority of people assume that safety studies must have been done in advance of releasing the products onto the market. Not true. And I think the vast majority of people assume that if there are diseases that we no longer have present, like polio, that the reduction or elimination of the disease must by default be due to the vaccine. If you listen to Dr. Suzanne Humphreys on polio, you will hear that there's another side to the story where perhaps the numbers of polio cases were already dramatically decreasing due to advantages or improvements in hygiene. Now, I think there are some diseases, like even on one of these MAHA meetings, one of the doctors said that smallpox, he thought that the smallpox vaccine was one of the greatest things ever invented. But I don't think we can assume that all vaccines are equally effective at preventing the disease that they claim to prevent. Chickenpox, for example. I definitely know that there are people who get the chickenpox vaccine and subsequently get chickenpox. Measles, when we've had some of those outbreaks, I remember there was one down near Disney, however many years ago. The vast majority of those cases were in fully vaccinated populations. So we have to, I mean, in my mind, you need to look at efficacy of the vaccine. You need to look at how deadly is the disease that you're trying to prevent. If it's a routine childhood illness, might there be a point in letting the child's immune system fight the disease off so that the child's immune system is strengthened? And then you need to look at toxicity of the vaccine and the longevity of it, the durability. So when they want to give your newborn the hepatitis B vaccine, which until recently was a thing, my question is, how many newborns are going out and having sexual intercourse or using IV drugs? Because I don't think very many are, and that's the only way to get hepatitis. So if, in my mind, it would make a lot of sense if the vaccine is effective, and who knows, to delay it until puberty, which is the point where kids might be starting to think about sexual intercourse and IV drug use. But I can't think of very many reasons to do it in infancy, which is a euphemism for me saying there are no reasons to do it in infancy. It just makes no sense. You with me, Liam, or are you frozen? I have a feeling that you're frozen and I'm talking to myself, which I can keep talking to myself, but I never know if I should continue, or am I also frozen for anybody who might be watching? Oh dear, what do we do now? And I see nothing from Amanda. All right, so we're going to wait a minute. We're going to see if Liam comes back. My hope is that he will. And at that point, I want to show a few links. One of them is the link to the doctor raising the alarm on the particular childhood vaccination that involves vaccinations for 6 different diseases. And it is associated with a pretty high risk level. And then I also want to show the links to, there were a few calls to action. One was for the peptides, pepmed.org, P as in Paul, E as in egg, P as in Paul, M as in Mary, E as in egg, D as in dog, pepmed.org. There's a petition, and apparently we have until 11:59 p.m. tomorrow night, Thursday night, to sign that petition. There's going to be a hearing on July 23rd and July 24th about the future of peptide meds. And I agree very much with Lee Rosebush, who said, whether you're for or against peptides doesn't really matter. We're talking about medical freedom, and we're talking about how much do we want the FDA to make decisions for us, or for that matter, an insurance company making decisions for us, versus do we want what I want, which is for medical decisions to be up to me, my doctor or practitioner, and perhaps my pharmacist that I'm in consultation with. And I would much rather that the FDA stay out of my medical decisions, especially because personally I don't trust them a whole lot. The historical context is that the FDA has often approved medicines and therapies where we know that a great deal of harm results. We need only look at the opioid epidemic. The FDA approved a label saying that OxyContin was not addictive, and that was long after it was well known that OxyContin was super addictive. Several months later, we can figure out the reason why. The head of the FDA stepped down and went to work for the Sackler family, which was the family that owned and ran Purdue Pharma, the company that made OxyContin. Vioxx was another drug that I remember. Vioxx was a drug for, I believe, for cardiac issues. It was released onto the market. I can't remember when, but it was quite some time ago, at least I'm going to say 20 years ago. A lot of people died. And after whatever critical number died, it was pulled off the market. However, the story doesn't end there. What happened is that later it emerged that prior to introducing the drug onto the market, the company knew, and we know this from their internal emails that were ultimately released, that it was going to cause a certain number of fatalities, and the company made the decision to release the drug onto the market anyway. My personal belief is that it's because, as it stands currently, no one individual is ever held accountable in any way. No one individual ever pays a fine. No one individual ever goes to prison. No one individual has any rights suspended, any freedoms that are curtailed. Companies are fined. But if you're the individual, and at the end of the day, it is individuals who make decisions, not companies, what do you care? I think that the way the whole system is set up is that companies make decisions, and as long as the amount of revenue that a particular drug brings into the company is in excess of the amount of fines that might ultimately come about for whatever fatalities or serious injuries arise from use of the drug, then I believe it's what's considered the cost of doing business, and the company carries on. I think that the only chance of change, unfortunately, is if we hold individuals accountable, and that's what I would like to see happen. I am real confused as to where my buddy Liam is. I am going to see if I can text him and find out if there is hope of resuming things, or are we done for tonight? All right, let me just see what happens here. All right, we'll see if we get a response from Liam. Trying to think of other things that we can talk about. We talked about a little bit about peptides. We talked about medical freedom and liberties. And the other call to action was about the chiropractic. The bill that was mentioned was HR 539. HR 539, which is a bill, I believe, sponsored by MAHA, that is in support of chiropractic, particularly for seniors who, I guess the idea is that they should be able to have access to chiropractic through Medicare. And that is all I know about that. All right. Not sure what is going on with my buddy Liam. Not sure what I should be doing at this point. Let me see if I can think of other things that we can touch back on. I'm appalled by the story that Mary Holland, who is the executive director of the Children's Health Defense Fund, told about the woman who lost not one but two children, twins, in what appears to be a vaccine reaction. The ER had documented that the twins were having what appeared to be a vaccine reaction where they became quite ill following administration of a vaccine. They were sent home after having been given Tylenol, and then they died later that day. As if that weren't bad enough, there's my buddy. He came back.
Bravo! She just takes over the feed even when, man, absolutely 5 stars. Wow! Even when the feed comes down, she keeps fighting. She keeps fighting.
I'm talking to myself. I never know whether I'm talking to myself or whether what's going on. Because
no, you're a consummate pro. It's like you were born to do this.
Yeah, but my question is, was I talking to myself or did we have any viewers? Because my little banner still showed the minutes rolling. But you were there.
If the minutes are rolling, somebody is absolutely attacking my feed. This is 3 times. I saw the CPU, the central computer processing unit. It was like, okay, I'm doing fine. And then when I would go to the internet feed, just like 0
Interesting.
bits were coming
you know
in.
why,
So,
Liam? Because they do
Why?
not like your old man stem cells.
That's right. The
That is most definitely why.
old man stem cells.
Or they're jealous of your old man stem cells because
Jealous, yes.
old man stem cells could be more rocking and rolling and powerful than young man stem cells. How do we know? And
How do we know?
Amanda's-
And Amanda is here.
Amanda is here.
All is well. We're
Yeah.
all. So I'm gonna try, just because it pisses me off when people try to mess. When people try to mess with the, you know.
All right, so what are we trying, Liam? Oh, when he goes silent again. Dang it. Dang it. This is like a messed up evening. Totally messed up evening. Amanda, I have my phone, so you can always message me. I'll check my WhatsApp and I'll check. I guess that's pretty much how you do it. If you have anything to say, I'm going to check WhatsApp. And even if you don't get through on here, you can get through on here. All right.
Let's see if.
All right. All right, so the thing is rolling and ticking, which means that theoretically there's at least Amanda watching, even if that's the only person. And my old man friend is back.
That's right. That's right. It does not like your.
Dang it, he froze again. Doesn't like something, and we don't get to know what it doesn't like. We're just going in fits and starts here. All right, well, just to recap. All right, HR 539 in support of chiropractic for seniors via Medicare. That one isn't as time sensitive. The one that is super time sensitive is pepmed.org. Hearing July 23rd and July 24th, but the cutoff is tomorrow night, 11:59 p.m. To go online and say what you want to say. But I do believe the ultimate is, in my mind, what Lee Rosenbush said, which is it's about medical freedom. So if I want to take medical peptides, who is the FDA to tell me that I can't? And in particular, who is the FDA to tell me that I can't, based on what evidence? Because it's certainly not based on the evidence that the drugs that are already approved by the FDA and on the market are super safe, because we know that they're not. You only have to listen to the commercials that are on TV at night where it says may cause, and then it gives a whole string of things, liver damage or suicidal impulses or, increase in liver enzymes or whatever things that we know are not indicators of good health. So I would like the FDA out of my business. And then I wonder what we do to support the woman that Andrea Shaw, the woman that Mary Holland talked about, whose twins, after receiving in one day the hepatitis A vaccine, DTaP, which itself is 3 vaxes. It's diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis, and the flu vaccine. So that's actually 5 vaccines in a day in 3 doses. Then went to the hospital with a post-vaccination reaction and then died. And she currently is in jail, charged with, I'm not sure what, but I think it is murder of those 2 infants. Meanwhile, she has a 14-month-old from whom she is separated, even though she was nursing that infant. Amanda and I, being psychologists, know that separation of a mother and her infant is highly damaging to the infant. The attachment period in early infancy, when an infant bonds to its primary caregiver or caregivers, is essential and critical. And there is lasting emotional implications if that bond is disrupted. Nothing more disruptive than having the mother be in prison, distressed, not able to see, touch, hold, or feed her infant. So that's pretty outrageous. I don't know what the dates are in terms of what things may be coming up in terms of that woman's court trial, but I will look into it. try to keep people posted. We can review that there was talk about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in children. Between 5 and 8 million children have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in the United States now, which is appalling, atrocious, and there is no reason for it. Type 2 diabetes used to be a disease of adulthood and therefore was called adult onset diabetes. However, in the last 60 years, the number has doubled in children who are diagnosed with that disease. So I am I'm distressed about all of it. However, given that that is the state of where we are, I am thrilled beyond belief that RFK is in office and that MAHA exists and that MAHA is shining a light on all of these things. Everything from getting red dye number 40 and the other, I believe there are 7 other petroleum-based food additives and dyes that are being removed from the food system. That to me seems like a be controversial thing unless you are somebody who makes your money in the petroleum industry. I am thrilled that RFK uncovered $6.5 billion in Medicaid and healthcare fraud that nobody else caught. Presumably they were asleep at the wheel or not listening, not looking very closely. He put a stop to it. I listened to a podcast in which he described that there was a hotel in Florida and every single room in the hotel was listed as an office address of ostensibly a medical practice, or I believe it was a practice that was issuing medical devices to patients. However, when that hotel was raided, there were no medical practices. There were no medical devices. There was nothing. It apparently was a giant scam that was perpetrated, believe it or not, by Cuba, I believe he said. At any rate, $6.5 billion in fraud is significant. That bill is coming to all of us taxpayers. So the fact that he cracked it open and put a stop to it, amen, thank you. Thank you, Bobby Kennedy. The fact that he's shining a light on the fact that prescribing drugs is not the only way and probably not the best way to treat a wide variety of diseases that adults and children currently have. So the phenomenon known as de-prescribing is the effort and initiative to have doctors, rather than their primary course of action be to bring out a prescription pad and write a prescription, which often is for a psychotropic for children, teens, adolescents, to first look at lifestyle things. Could we get that kid sleeping? Could we get that kid eating some nutritious food? Could we get that kid running around and moving their body? Exercise has been shown to be as effective as antidepressants in clinical trials. Antidepressants, even in the clinical trials that are run by the very company that makes the antidepressant, have never outperformed placebos by more than 13%. So there's that. So in my opinion, yes, we need to be looking at other things. We don't know what the long-term effect of those drugs are in children. In terms of how many children are taking them, I just was looking that up for a post that I was working on earlier, and I can tell you that there are 3,155,441 youth between the ages of 0 and 17 who are prescribed ADHD drugs. Antidepressants are prescribed to 2,154,118 children between 0 and 17. Anti-anxiety drugs, we have 1,153,351 children. Antipsychotics are prescribed to 829,372 children between 0 and 17 years of age. And mood stabilizers are prescribed to 794,715 youth. And it was over 8,000 children between birth and 1 year of age who were prescribed psychotropic drugs. How that's even possible, I don't know. But apparently, Liam, we're clapping for him.
Let's give it up for Susan Morado, man. The queen. You don't have your crown, so I won't.
best I can do is-
man, you deserve
nothing.
No, you deserve one. Bravo. I would try to. It really. I swear to God, I feel like we're being monitored by some.
We probably are.
Spain is known for being especially weird for information. Spain and Britain, I think,
Is
are the
it?
two most like wokest entities
Really?
as far as media is
I did not
concerned.
know that. Okay.
Yeah, and so maybe every time
Well,
I
I had
pull
trouble
up.
with X too. When I went online to promote our little MAHA thing, and I had trouble with X, and I can't tell whether it's a Susan problem, like I need to log in and do something, or whether it's an X problem, like they don't like what we're talking about. Which I thought the whole point of X is that they were going to let anybody say anything, but apparently not.
Right, there's legislation in the EU. They're trying to create a passport-only web experience. Like you can't get on the web unless you have some sort of bio-marking website nonsense. So
Insanity. Complete
they're
insanity.
really freaked out. So, well, I guess I don't want to mess anything up because if I bring up a thing, it's going to. So must be getting late. But you're in Spain now, right? Must be getting late there.
I am. It is late. It is,
Yeah.
well, the computer never changed times. It is 11:41 here.
Yeah.
PM.
So once again, let's give Susan a hand for holding down the fort when all hell broke
Happy to
loose.
do it. Happy to do it. Absolutely.
All right. So I
All right.
guess we'll try this again next time when we're not so spread out all over the world. But I'm
Correct. I'll
going
be
to be in Europe in about a month, so we'll see if
So we got a couple weeks, right, that we can
we
play
got
around
a
with,
couple of
and
weeks. Yeah.
You're in the US
Well,
and I'm
yeah,
in the West.
I'm not sure of my computer whether I want to lug something powerful
Yeah,
with
yeah.
me, or we'll see. Let's
Totally there. We will figure it out.
figure it out when we get there. All right, everybody. Thanks
All
for
right,
watching.
bye.
We'll see you next time. Au
Thank you.
revoir.